Okay. All right. So today what we're going to talk about is priorities. And I think that priorities is one of those subjects that it's a universal subject. It's always important. It's always, a need and something that it's one of those things that you usually see really clearly when you're looking backwards, when you're looking at where have I been, what have I been doing, how have I spent my life for the last year, last 5 years, last 10 years, last 20 years. But it's usually not super clear looking towards the future, looking forward. It can get really fuzzy. And, priority has a huge competitor in uh, urgency. Urgency is usually the one that pushes priorities out. What is urgent? What needs to be handled? What needs to be done right away? And I think for a leader, one of the keys of success is knowing how to manage your priorities, knowing how to put first things first, knowing how to work the top of the list. I mean, Jesus, um, one of his classic rebukes, I'm sure you guys have all heard sermons on Matthew 23, where he says, woe to you, Pharisees, you've tithed your mint, your dill, your cumin, but you've forgotten the more important matters of the law. And it's important even in our faith that we recognize what is most important. And everything is not the same. Everything is not equally important. And there are some things that are just simply more important than others, just like there are some relationships more important than others. It's not that the individuals are necessarily more important than other individuals, but our relationships can be more important. And the ability, what was that? The ability to identify our priorities in time and life and spiritually really has a lot to do and a lot to say towards our ability to be successful in our lives, successful and live the life that we intend to live, that we were built to live, that we were designed to live, but also be the leaders we want to be. I think any leader wants to be a successful leader, wants to be a good leader, wants to help people well. And a lot of that depends on their ability to identify and live according to the priorities. I love this scripture for a lot of different reasons, and it's tempting to go into the first part, but I'm just going to point out the last part. Jesus said, comment in his ministry, he replied, you go tell that fox, I will keep on driving out demons and healing people today and tomorrow. And on the third day, I will reach my goal. And we learned several things about Jesus' ministry here. The most obvious one is Jesus gets mad sometimes. He called Herod the fox. He said, you go tell that fox. And basically the word fox in the first century was equal to the word rat today. It'd be like somebody saying, you go tell that rat. It was a very strong, demeaning term. And Jesus didn't pull any punches. I mean, he called him a fox. He called him a rat, basically. But more importantly to the subject we're talking about today is what he says about this. Obviously this was basically that people thought that Jesus needed to tone it down and back off because he was going to get in trouble, that Herod was going to come after him, like he did with John the Baptist. But Jesus basically is saying, nothing's going to slow me down. I have a goal to accomplish. I've got a plan. He says, I will keep on driving out demons and I will keep on healing people today and tomorrow. And on the third day, I will reach my goal. Now, it's important to note several things. One is Jesus had a plan. He had a plan. A lot of times people kind of think that Jesus just wandered around for 3 years preaching, and then whoop, lo and behold, the church came out of that. But he absolutely had a plan. When he got here, there was a plan. Everything went according to plan. Everything went according to God's will. And so that's the first thing that's important to note, because sometimes there's a false impression or a false idea that that for something to be authentic, for something to be genuine, to something to be organic, truthful, it needs to be just free flowing and natural. Like, in other words, just get up and see where the Spirit leads you and see what happens that day. That is not how Jesus ran his ministry. He absolutely had a plan. He had priorities. He had goals. And he says, on third day, I will reach my goal. And obviously there's a little bit of a messianic prophecy in that, embedded in that. But the fact is, Jesus had a goal. He had things that he wanted to accomplish. He wanted to get done. And nobody was going to stop him from that. And I think it's important that we understand that. I remember one time when we were in Puerto Rico, I did this study. It was the very first time that we were sent to turn a church around, to help a church get on its feet. So I studied out Jesus's ministry, like, what were his priorities? What did he do? Where did he spend his time? Who did he spend his time with? What was his strategy? That was basically the question I was trying to answer, was what was the strategy of Jesus? And things came out very clear as I read through the Gospels, that he absolutely had a plan, that even, Jesus made it very clear that God loves everybody, men, women, Jews, Gentiles, foreigners, everybody. But yet at the same time, he also made it very clear that he was sent to the Jews, that's where he was going to focus his ministry. He still went off and healed Syrians. He still, reached out to the Samaritan woman. He still healed the Roman centurion servant. I mean, he still loved everybody, but he had a strategy. He also equally had a strategy with the apostles, and choosing the apostles, right? And we look at Paul's ministry, same thing. In Philippians 3, the whole chapter really is about this, but I'll just pick out one scripture. He says, not that I've already obtained all this or have already reached I got moved by already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken a hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. In other words, he's saying that he's clearly saying he's got a goal. He's clearly saying everything he's doing is to reach that goal, to reach the goals that God had given him. He had a commission from God. He had goals that were given to him by God, and he was going to do everything in his power to make sure he achieved those goals, that he got the prize to which God had called him heavenward. God clearly calls us to things. God clearly calls us to reach certain goals. What would you say are some of the goals that God calls us toward? What would you see as this is what God is calling me to?
Definitely salvation, reaching the goal, living our life as Jesus, modeled, with Jesus as our model, and growing in our faith, growing in our love for one another, our patience.
Yeah.
In many different areas.
Yeah. Okay. So clearly he wants us all to be saved. That's an initial goal. He wants us to grow in attributes of the Spirit, right? To be more patient, to be more kind, to be more loving. What other goals would God have for us or give to us?
I think just to love each other, and to help each other through things, because, of course, life is hard. So, he sent us each other,
Yeah.
to help each other through this life, and to keep righteous through it so that we can obtain the prize.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge goal, right? To love one another, right? To love God, to love one another. It's not something we automatically do. It's not something we automatically have. It's a goal. It's something that has to be achieved. We have to get there and get ourselves there. Any other thoughts?
I think just to add on to what Latanya was talking about, love, to be able to learn to love learn to love like God loved us, like he demonstrated with his son, like Jesus demonstrated, to love each other and to love God, to learn to love God in that manner, to where that love compels you to fulfill all those other things, to be
Yeah.
able to do all those other things without having to be told, without having to, kind of even think about it, because it's kind of built into love. Because
Yeah.
love will protect you and stop you from doing certain things, and it will compel you to do certain things as well.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, just the goal to be a loving person, that, as you're saying, it entails a lot. There's
Yeah.
a lot in that. There's a lot embedded in that, and a lot of changes, a lot of growth, a lot of shifting in our hearts and our minds to be able to be that loving person, to be able to be what we need to be for each other, and to really love God. It's not something that just happens by itself.
Yeah.
It's something that we have to be intentional about, and be focused on, or as Jesus said, the love of most will grow cold. The hearts of most will grow cold. That's what naturally happens. That's entropy, which is, one of the basic laws of physics, that everything breaks down to a natural state. And we don't want that. That's not what we want. That's like what we see in the movie Walking Dead, where society breaks down. Everybody's, the zombies aren't even really the problem. It's the other people that are the problem. And that's what can happen, is the problem. Instead of, us loving each other, we become problems for each other. When Jesus chose the disciples, or chose his disciples, his apostles, he had to prioritize his relationships, right? So, and Luke 6 is one of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray, and he spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. Simon, who he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, and he goes down the list. But this was so incredibly important for Jesus to think through and prioritize his relationships. On the one hand, we want to love everybody, right? We don't just say, I'm going to love these people, but I'm not going to love these people. And even in the church, we want to love everybody in the church, but you can't actively love everybody. You can't actively serve everyone. You can't actually actively be in a relationship with everyone. You have to be strategic and pick, okay, who am I going to be close to? That's what Jesus did. I mean, this was so important that he spent the entire night praying about this, to make sure that he picked the right guys, that he picked the 12, and not that every one of them is going to go great. Obviously it didn't go great with Judas, but he was absolutely intentional about his relationships and who he would spend time with and who would be in that inner circle that he's teaching. So it's clearly a pattern that is godly. Again, we tend to think, oh no, but I'm just going to be friends with everyone, and we're all going to hang out, and I'm not going to prioritize anybody over anybody else. That's not really what Jesus did. He did make priorities. He did love everybody, but he made priorities for sure. And in Acts 6, we see another example. And I read this last time in the spiritual, when we talked about leadership's, the spirituality of a leader. But there's another point in here that's important to recognize. In Acts 6, when they choose the 7 to meet the needs of the widows, he says, so the 12 gathered all the disciples together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the word of God in order to wait on tables. Brothers and sisters, choose 7 men from among you who are known to be full of the Spirit and wisdom. We will turn this responsibility over to them and will give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the word. They were absolutely choosing a priority here. That now, was serving the widows a good thing, an important thing? Yeah, absolutely. And we all know how God feels about widows. It was absolutely important, but it wasn't more important than their attention to prayer and ministry of the word. And so they set up deacons so that they can stay with their priorities. And this is probably one of the biggest struggles in leadership, is we feel like we've got to do everything that's important. You know, I mean, it's one thing, one level of leader doesn't even know what's important. It just do whatever. A higher level of leadership is to identify what's important. An even higher level of leadership is to make sure you're actually doing what's important. Learning, in other words, learning to say no to some things, you know, learning what to say no to. I think for me, honestly, this has been one of the biggest challenges in my leadership life, in my life as a leadership, because I tend to be sentimental. I want to get with everybody who asks for help. I want to help everybody who needs help. I want to share everything I've got. And who's always been really good and helpful for me is Michelle, who will tell me, is that who you should be getting with?
Who's
Is that
not
what you
sentimental and coming and wanting to give to everyone.
Well, I think you're smart and you're strategic. I mean, honestly, honey, you should be talking about this, because this is what you've been very good at. And a lot of the reason, because of your health issues, you know, you had to prioritize and be strategic. I didn't. I was being a goofball, getting with everybody, you know, and having 6-7 appointments a day and burning myself out. And I had to learn to cut that back and say no to some people and say no to some situations. It's still a challenge. I mean, I have my own little rule in my head. I don't commit to any speaking engagements unless I ask Michelle what she thinks, because she's good at that and says, well, you know, I know you'd really like to go do that, but is that really what you need to be doing right now? Is that really what's best? You
I
want to say
think
something?
also, yeah, it's funny because I was thinking how we think that if we don't decide what's important, it won't impact us. Like, kind of like the same way we think, like if we're cooking and we're tasting everything, that those calories don't count because we didn't actually put them on our plate and sit down and eat them. We think somehow those ones were free. And I think what we don't realize is if we don't prioritize what we're doing, we still will make decisions about what's not important to us, or we'll still choose something and neglect something else. Like
Yeah.
you will still pay for it in some way, whether you're thinking about it or not, you know?
Yeah. I mean, everything has a price. You know, you can't do everything. You can't get with everyone. You can't accomplish everything. So we have to figure out, what do I want to make sure and accomplish? Who do I want to make sure and be close to? You know, what do I want to make sure I get done this week, this year, this life? You know, and what are the things that, you know, that it's okay if I don't. And that's part of the challenge too, is I think for me, I would get stuck in, it's wrong to say no to somebody who asks me for help. But if 20 people ask me for help, I'm stuck because I can't get with them all. So I'm always doing something wrong. And then you've got the one person who I didn't get with, who gets mad and tells a whole bunch of people that, you know, Robert was a leader that doesn't get with people or doesn't care about people. And that's just a knife in my heart, you know? And so I would get stuck in this where I was afraid to say no to anybody, you know? And I think that happens to a lot of leaders. A lot of leaders get stuck and feeling like they've got to do everything, because they have that fear inside. Somebody's going to criticize me for this. Somebody's going to, and even sometimes it would even be somebody over us in the Lord. Why didn't you do this? You know, and you're thinking in your head, I can't do everything, you know, but they're not asking, you know, they're not really asking, they're really pointing out your mistake. And so this is really important. And how important was it for the apostles to have time and prayer and ministry of the word? It was totally important. They're starting the church of Jesus Christ. They needed to be men who are walking with God. And so how important was it to take care of these widows? really important, but it wasn't more important than prayer and ministry of the word. And it was something somebody else could do, which is one of those keys. Do I have to do this, or can somebody else do it? I've figured out at some point that I should only be doing what only I can do. You got that? I should only do what only I can do. Everything else I should be delegating or training somebody else to do it. And that's how the ministry can grow. That's how the church can keep growing. If I do everything, I quickly become the bottleneck, and nothing happens because everybody's waiting for Robert to make a decision, or for Robert to do this or to do that. And we've all been in those situations, right? Where we've been under a leader who, everybody's sitting around waiting for that leader to do something. And it's like, this is a bad setup. This is a bottleneck setup. So they were very smart. And they were very spiritual. They picked spiritual men to do this. They didn't just pick whoever's standing around without a job. They picked people who were known to be spiritual and wise. And that way, everything is taken care of. Everybody's taken care of. Everybody's happy and nobody's sitting around. It's the same thing that, happened with Moses when Jethro comes to him and he tells him to set up a structure so Moses isn't doing everything. I mean, that's one of the sure ways to burn out a leader and here's the challenge for us a lot of times is that we kind of like everybody waiting on us. We kind of like everybody coming to us. All of us have at least a little bit of a messianic complex. We want to be the savior. All of us have a little bit. We like people asking us advice. We like people depending on us. We like being the one with the solution. We like being the one who fixes things. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but we just can't we can't get carried away with that. We have to remember the church does have a savior. That's Jesus. That's his job, not my job. And people have a savior too. Again, Jesus' job. I'm here to help, but that's it. I'm not here to save. I'm not here to answer everything. I'm not here to solve everything. I'm just here to do whatever God wants me to do. And that's really important, learning and accepting our limitations. I am not the center of the wheel. Jesus is. I am a spoke in the wheel.
Yeah.
And that's good enough.
I was thinking also, here it talks about, we will turn this responsibility over to them and we'll give it our attention to prayer and the ministry of the word. And I think even in that, we can't, we have to have time to be able to pray and to know scripturally what we're going to teach or what we're going to apply and what situations. And I think sometimes we think, oh, well, we're spiritual people, so we're just going to know, we're going to walk into situations and know what to do. And that is true sometimes, but I think to really take the time to be connected to God and to even be asking, what is God's will in this situation or in today? What is God's will for me today? I think is really important to give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the word,
Yes.
I mean, again, it kind of reminds me of what you were saying before, like we think it's just going to be natural, that we're just going to know all the right things to do and the right things to say because we were baptized. I mean, I think we really think this sometimes, instead of realizing, no, you have to seek God's will, pray.
And I think, sometimes it's our own experience gets in the way because we've handled this before. We've done this before. And so we don't even think about seeking God because we think, well, I already know what to do. And it could even be 9 times out of 10, that's true. But there's always that situation that it really isn't true. It kind of looks like something you've done before, but there's some important nuances. There's important differences that you won't catch unless you take the time to pray about it. And if you take the time to meditate on something, or look to the scriptures, or ask God for help, or listen to God to see if he gives you any thoughts or insights. And then it's like, oh gosh, I didn't think of that. Oh yeah, what about this? And what about that? And then honestly, your help is much more effective, rather than just, oh yeah, this is situation 7C. I know what to do with this, let me hit the button 7C and this is my solution. When it's actually 7D, and 7C isn't going to be the right answer, So, in terms of our priorities, so what we have, we have time, we have objectives, we have relationships, and we have our souls. And the success, the outcomes of those things depend greatly on our ability to identify our priorities and to act on those priorities, to live out those priorities. And the success that we'll have, and how we spend our time, and the objectives that we go after and accomplish, in the relationships that God gives us, and our own souls, depends so much on our ability to identify what's important and live according to those priorities. If we take time, for example, we have 168 hours in a week. All of us do. And this is the cool thing, is we all get the same amount. It's not like some people get 200 hours and other people get 40 hours, And I know that we all feel like it's not enough. We all wouldn't it be great if we could squeeze a day in between Saturday and Sunday, just have midday, middle day or something, and just stick it in there. But no, it's not going to change. It never has changed. It's never going to change. So in that 168 hours, I figure we average person works 40, 50 hours a week. Okay, average. Now, a lot of us work more than that, and some of us even work less than that. But the average person works 40, 50 hours. The average person sleeps about 7 hours a night, and so that's about 50 hours of sleep in a week. 7 times 7 is 49. Let's say we get an extra hour on Saturday morning. The average person spends about a couple hours on Sunday at church, a couple hours at midweek on church, a couple hours in Bible talk, assuming they go to all three of those, and a little less now because we've been on Zoom, but let's say 6 hours. So that gives us totals of 106 hours that are in a sense locked in, right? That they're not really flexible. And if you're a disciple, obviously. So that actually leaves us 62 hours every week. Now, if you just look at that, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of time. That's another full-time job. That's besides sleep. That's besides work. That's besides church. What do I do with those 62 hours? And let me just say that I'm not saying that we need to count every hour and, now we got to manage every single minute of our day. But sometimes it's kind of good to pull all your money out of your pocket, see how much money do I have? What can I do here? And it's how much time do we have, and what do we do with that? Well, we've got eating, we've got cooking, we've got chores, we've got going to the gym, we got TV, we got shopping, we got sports, we got entertainment. We got a lot of stuff that gets packed into that, right? And then we have our, priorities again, right? Our soul care, our Bible reading, our prayer, our studying, our discipling, our studies, if we're helping somebody become a Christian, our serving one another, helping somebody in the community, or helping somebody in my Bible talk. So there's where it all has to get managed, right? There's where we have to learn to be good managers of where did I spend my week? Where did I spend my energy? What did I spend all my time in? I mean, it's incredibly easy for it to just disappear, isn't it? I mean, time and money, those are the two things that we never have enough, and they just seem to disappear. They're like they evaporate by themselves or something. And here's the challenge to be good at managing them, making sure, we see the example of the apostles, that they took the time for the ministry of the word and for prayer. How much time are you setting aside to make sure that you're reading, that you're praying, and whatever else you do to help yourself, journaling, writing letters to God, poetry to God, singing to God, listening. I mean, this is something, I've been a Christian 38 years. I've only just started where I actually sit there and just listen. I read scripture and then I just listen. Now that sounds kind of insane. You mean you've been in a relationship for 38 years and you've never listened? It's like, what kind of marriage would that be? What kind of friendship would that be? But obviously it wasn't like I totally ignored God, but where I'm actually actively listening, where I'm just shutting up and being silent and seeing what God puts on my heart. But I realized this, I have to block out time. I have to make sure. Now, I have the luxury, the blessing of being in the ministry, or curse, depending on how you look at it. But I have so I can, and I block out 3 to 4 hours, Monday through Friday, to make sure I have time for these things. Because like the apostles, if I have the responsibility of leading, then I better be walking with God. I better be being influenced by the Holy Spirit. But that is true at different degrees for every leader, that we better be connected to God, led by his Spirit, or we're gonna do dumb things. We're gonna make bad decisions. We're gonna do things we shouldn't be doing. And there's no way for God to stop us, because we're not listening, because we're not taking the time to be influenced by him. We're running ahead of him, and we're doing things according to what we think, instead of stopping and trying to seek out God's will and God's knowledge and God's input. Go
I
ahead.
think, I'm not sure if you're gonna talk about this, but I think also kind of being aware that there's different seasons of priorities.
Yeah.
Like even the fact that, the Esmonds aren't here this morning, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like they are where they should be right now. They should
Yes.
be, just giving glory to God for their little baby, and creating this new little family, and helping Michelle because she just went through labor, and and I think there's a place to be able to worship God in this little time of their life, and I think sometimes we tend to just keep trying to do the same thing that you always do because it's always right. Or, with Latanya and James, or even, when my dad died, times of mourning are different times, that we're not going to just keep on, same old. We're going to find God in those times.
Yeah.
And even use them as opportunities to help other people for that season of their life.
Yeah.
So I think God kind of presents different, events in our life that should look different than what they looked, on a routine.
Yeah.
Or even
Very
I think of, holidays, like we were taught when we were young, like use the holidays to create memories, to draw close to your kids, to draw close to family, to love and serve and create a family. Like, I mean, not just holidays, but I think they're ideal times to do that,
Yeah. And yet there are some leaders that actually taught the opposite, that just because it's a holiday, you still should be out there doing studies, and you should still be out there going to the mall and sharing your faith. And it's a good intention, but badly executed, because it's not realizing the times. What Michelle's saying, that's why Ecclesiastes 3 has that whole list. There's a time to laugh, and there's a time to weep. There's a time to mourn. There's a time to rejoice. There's a time for peace and a time for war, and being able to recognize what are the times. There's actually 2 different words in Greek for time. One is chronos, like as in chronology, and the other one is kairos. And kairos is not time as in a clock, but time as in how important is this? You know, that's what like what Michelle's talking about. The holidays are a kind of kairos moment, a kairos time. It's something more significant that you have to recognize. When somebody is hurting, they don't need to be doing regular stuff. They need to be in the moment. You know, this is what being mindful is all about. Being mindful is being aware of kairos, being aware of what is the moment I'm in, you know, what is happening around me, what is, and like there's so many. I remember one time I was trying to get my son to go to sleep. We always had 7:30 bedtime, and I had two brothers in the living room waiting for me to do a study with a guy that was studying the Bible. And I was trying to get Andrew just hurry up and go to sleep. And I was like, I only read a little bit of the book, and I
Which
didn't
he
want to.
probably noticed.
Oh yeah, he said he wanted more, and then he wanted me to sing Andrew's song every night was Amazing Grace. He wanted Amazing Grace every night. And I tried to get away with singing like 2 verses of it, you know, nope, you know, he wanted the whole song. And then I just realized, what am I doing? And that's funny because I said to myself, 10 years from now, I'm not even gonna know who the people were in my living room, but I am gonna remember these times with my son. I am gonna remember singing to him. And the funny thing is, I really don't remember who it was in my living room. I don't even remember who it was I was studying with. But boy, do I remember that moment. And I remember thinking, no, I need to enjoy this moment. He was only about 4 years old, you know, and I need to be here and I need to be now, you know. And so it is really important, not like in a pressure thing, like, oh no, you're going to blow it, you're going to waste time. No, not like that, you know, but in a just realize the moment we're in, realize the times we're in. Even now, like I think it would be very foolish if I launched a campaign for evangelism right now, because the truth is we're all stressed out right now. We're all going through different levels of mourning. We're all dealing with lots of challenges. We have to do things that help the moment we're in, you know. That's why all this focus on spirituality, to help people get healed with God, to help people feel comforted by God, to help us be near to God, because Satan is coming after us, you know. But it's not the time to you know, let's go do something exterior. Yeah, we need to share our faith. Yes, we need to help people become Christians, and that's also good for us. But we can't ignore the needs of the moment, you know, what's happening right now in our lives. The other is objectives, like what do we want to accomplish? What should I be doing? What do I want to get done this week, this year, this life? What do I want to look back at the end of my life and say, I'm so glad I did that? You know, those are the part. What do you think? You know, there was a huge study done of, I can't remember now the details, but it was like hundreds of men. They asked them at the end of their lives, people that were in their last week of life, what do you feel good about and what do you regret? And they all talked about their priorities and misplaced priorities. What do you think was the most important things to them? What do you think would stand out in the last week of life? What would be the most important things?
Not spending time with family.
Yep, that was actually, I think that was number 1 or number 2, is why didn't I spend more time with my family? What else was super important?
Probably self-care.
Yep. Why didn't I take better care of myself? You know, I didn't take care of myself, and that's why I'm dying of this, you know, or dying of that, because I didn't take it serious. What's that?
Maybe regret, maybe like not doing the things that they, you know, thought about doing and just didn't take that risk or take that chance or to step out. That crossed my mind too as well.
Yeah, no, regret is a huge part of it. In fact, the speaker was talking about the difference between those who die well and those who don't die well is that the ones who die well are the ones that, even if it was late in life, figured out, I need to spend time with my family or my friends, or relationships are the most important thing, you know. And there were people that really regretted their lack of knowing God, you know, their lack of relationship with God. I mean, I had a really good friend, and it was one of the really tough things I went through in life a few years back, who his wife called me. We had been close to them in Jersey. There were a couple, they were leaders in our ministry. And out of the blue, she called me, told me that he's really, really sick and he's in the hospital in New Jersey. So I called him up. We were here in San Diego, and I was horrified. He sounded like he was 100 years old. He was super sick. And when I talked to him, he just cried, because he said he hadn't been coming to church for a couple of years, and he had not taught his sons about God. And that's what he was so regretting, you know. And he died like, I think it was like 2 days later, you know. And the good thing was that a brother was able to get with him there in the hospital, and he just repented, you know. He repented. He went to God with a clear conscience. But boy, was he loaded with regret that he hadn't taught his children about God. You know, he hadn't taught them anything, or, you know, whatever. But I think that is, you know, in the long run, how we evaluate, what have I accomplished, and really, what are the important accomplishments? You know, is it the house? Is it the car? Is it the paycheck? Is it people? Is it relationships? You know, and we have that with ministry. We have that in our life skills. How have I invested in myself, you know, in my education, my training? What have I gotten good at, you know? And what did I waste my time on that I wish I wouldn't have? And which relationships were the most important ones? Did I build up the relationships that I should have? I gotta move. I realize my computer's about to die. But I think that there's you remember the series Chicken Soup for the Soul? There was a whole bunch of those. Those were like really popular in the church for a while. I think I read almost all of them. There's a ton of them. And I pillaged them for illustrations and stories because they were great. But I remember one of them was they asked somebody, you know, what are your regrets? He was on his deathbed, and he gave a whole list of what his regrets are. And I can't remember exactly how it went, but basically he told the person, you know, that learn from me. You're still a young person. Don't make these mistakes. You know, do what's most important. Prioritize your relationships. Prioritize your time, where you spend. So it's, you know, it is incredibly important, you know, and especially when you think about our relationships. So, you know, who are our top priority relationships? You know, obviously God for a disciple should be at the very top, you know, and we have spouse if we're married, we have family, we have friends, you know, these are the relationships that the way I look at it is, these are the relationships that God gave us, right? These are the relationships that God put around us. And sometimes, you know, they're the most difficult. You know, I don't think there's any relationships more difficult than family, you know, because you know each other so well, you have a history, you know, but at the same time, they really are the most important relationships, you know, even with the church, you know. I mean, when somebody is dying, almost always who surrounds them? Their family. Who's around them? Who's there? You know, and yeah, we have a lot of great relationships, hopefully, in the church and people. And sometimes those relationships are far better than our relationships with our family. I think most of Michelle and I's closest friends have not necessarily been family, but that doesn't mean that our family is not important. You know, I mean, we've had some really great friendships in the church, but thinking that through, and do I spend the time that I need to with my family or with my friends in the church? that I want to be close to? Or do I let the busyness of life, the urgent things of life squeeze out my relationships? And obvious one that typically doesn't get noticed is God, squeezing God out of our relationships, out of our life, because generally speaking, you go to work, nobody's going to ask you, did you have time with God today? You go to school, nobody's saying, how much time did you spend praying? And even in the church where we used to ask a lot, we don't, I can't even remember the last time anybody asked me. Of course, I talk about it a lot, but I can't remember the last time somebody asked me, how's your relationship with God? And probably I get credit, that people just assume that I have a great relationship with God, but we really should ask each other that, we do ask each other generally, how's your relationship with your family, your spouse, your kids? And that's good because it's important to keep those and our friends, I think that one of the things that concerns me as a leader is I think that a lot of us have forgotten how to be good friends in the church. We were so much better at it before. And to be fair, it was easier because a lot of us were 20-nothing years old and didn't have a whole lot to do, and then life got busy. We have kids, we got all this stuff. And then time becomes more and more scarce. And it's easy for these priorities to just simply get squeezed out. We're running around doing so much stuff. And we have to remember that what we do really is in our hands. Who we spend time with really is in our hands. I remember Michelle and I, we wanted to get with this couple, and we were really close to them. They were a young couple. We pulled into the ministry, we trained them, and then we were working with Hope, so we weren't in their world, so to speak. And they'd been telling us that they really miss us. They really wanted to get time. And so we set up a time to get together, and then we were supposed to get together and they called and canceled. They said because they were supposed to have X number of appointments that week with non-Christians and they didn't meet their goals. So they had to cancel with us so they could go find some non-Christians to get with. And, it's one of those, okay, yeah, it's out of a good heart. Somebody set that goal out of a good heart, but it's totally misunderstanding priorities. It would have been much more important for them. And I think of even the mistakes Michelle and I have made with family or with certain relationships where we focused on things to do instead of people. I think of even our wedding, like our family had very little to do with our wedding. And that was a mistake. I look back at that and I think, what were we thinking? That, Michelle's mom had hardly any say in our wedding, was basically a visitor. And that would have been a great opportunity to pull her in and get her connected. And so some of that is just foolish zeal without knowledge. And some of that is just stupidity that we got to learn from, that a good leader has to live according to their priorities. Plan what you do what you plan, and put first things first in all things, right? And then there are others that we just reach out to, So like when you think through, okay, who am I going to spend time with this week? Who am I going to get with? Who will I say no to? And it depends on where you're at in life, of course. Like I look at, you got young couples that are with multiple kids, and especially during the pandemic, people having their kids at home, that's been incredibly challenging for lots of people. So, man, there's instead of having 4 or 5 slots for getting with people in a week, they're down to 1 or 2, And so you got to really think through which of the 1 or 2 am I going to get with? And it can't be just anybody, I love everybody and I want to help everybody, but there are certain people I need to get with. And for a leader, it's very important always to take care of the people who carry the big loads. That if there's somebody that you disciple or you get with that is helping a whole Bible talk or is helping a couple of Bible talk leaders, something, they're carrying a bigger load in the ministry. So we have to make sure we take care of them. We have to make sure we're there for them. Or somebody, who's in a rough situation in life, you know, making sure that they're taken care of. Somebody's got 3 kids, a single mom and 2 jobs, you know, making sure they get taken care of, making sure somebody's helping them because they've got a bigger load of life to carry, and helping make those priorities happen in there. So, and then the last one, you know, soul, taking care of your soul. And this is, you know, I first I was going to write soul self-care, but it is self-care for sure. But even more specifically, your soul, you know, I think all self-care is important. I think it's something that we're, at least in the International Church of Christ, we're just discovering this. You know? I mean, it's never been really a big priority, self-care. And again, I think a lot of it was zeal without knowledge. You know, Jesus said, take up your cross, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. So we had that in our mind, and that's good and that's right. But that doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself. That doesn't mean you aren't smart about how you're living and how you're treating your body. But with your soul, I think it's one that we still don't really talk about. We still are not really aware, you know, of why do we need to pray? You know, why do we need that connection with God? Why do we need Bible reading? You know, it's not just a to-do because I'm a disciple, so I'm supposed to do this and I better do it. It's bigger than that. It's much more important than that. Studies even, you know, getting into reading things and studying things out and getting to know scripture, meditating on scripture. Why are these things so important? You know, they literally transform your heart and your mind. They put you on another level. They take you to an altered state that is godly, you know, that is spiritual versus where the rest of the world is running around, you know. And I think like right now, it's so evident who's walking with God and who's not. Because when you're not walking with God, you get so beat up by all these issues in the world. But when you're walking with God, not that you don't also get a beating sometimes, and not that you don't get challenged, you get challenged, but you're empowered to overcome the challenge. You're empowered to get through the valley of shadow and death. You don't get stuck in it, and you don't stay in it, and you don't get crushed or killed in it. You're able to get through it, you know. The discipling, why do we need discipling? It's not just so that somebody can, you know, tell us what to do. It's because we need that connection. We need to be connected. We need to bounce things off each other. We need to get input and give input and share with one another and just help each other, you know, because we don't want to be the doctor who treats himself. We need to be somebody who can get help and helps others, taking care of our souls, you know. So the question is in the priority should all be, how's my soul doing? How's my soul? You know, you got 2 spirits in you. You have 2 spirits. That sounds weird, I know, but you have 2. You have your spirit and you have the Spirit of God. There's 2 spirits in there. And how much the Spirit of God is able to influence your spirit depends on how much you prioritize these things. How much time do you spend in prayer and Bible reading and Bible study and discipling and you know, I think I got one more. Yeah, serving, because serving is a big part of this too. Serving transforms our hearts as well. But these are our priorities. So what does that look like? You know, and everybody's life is going to look a little different, right? I mean, some people, like I said at the beginning, some people are working 70 hours a week. And, you know, they've got 2 kids, a bird, and 3 dogs, you know, or some people, you know, they've just got themselves. They're single, they have no kids, they got their job, and they've got a lot more flexibility in their schedule. So this very list is just going to look very different according to lives. And that's why we can't make blanket statements or cookie cutter Christianity, because everybody's different. For one person who's got a lot of health issues, just showing up at church is a great victory. For another person who's got everything going for them, they should be able to show up at church and be super giving and get with people and do all kinds of stuff, you know. And that's a victory for them. Just showing up isn't enough because they could do a lot more. But it gets back to that parable of the talents, right? And so this list apart is just going to look really different for everybody. But for everybody, it's key. Identifying and living according to what our priorities are. And I'll close out with this. In Galatians 2:1-2, he says, Paul says, and after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas. He's a 14-year-old Christian. He's been around a while, disciple of Jesus for 14 years. He's been a man of God his whole life, but he's been a disciple of Jesus for 14 years. He says, I took Titus along also. I went in response to a revelation and meeting privately with those esteemed as leaders, the apostles. I presented to them the gospel that I preached among the Gentiles. I wanted to be sure I was not running and had not been running my race in vain. You know, Paul wanted to make sure, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. I don't want to find out at the end of my life that I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, or that I was teaching something I wasn't supposed to be teaching. And that's how it is. We don't want at the end of our life to look back and say, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? Or why didn't I do this? Better to identify what I should be doing now and learn how to practice that. How do I keep first things first in my life? How do I plan what to do and do what I plan? How do I make sure that God is my priority every day? That the people that are the priorities of my life, I treat them as priorities. They feel like priorities. They know that they are my priorities. How do I live that way? So that's what's before us. So I will stop there, and I'm going to stop recording so we can